What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Flash recap and review. Today we're talking about Season 6, Episode 14, entitled Death of the Speedforce. If you haven't watched this episode, pause this video, open a new tab, and watch it on CWTV.com. There will be a lot of spoilers in this video, so I don't want to ruin it for anybody. Go watch the episode and then come back right here. Alright, let's get right into it. This was a crazy episode. A lot happened in an hour. It's really amazing how many things they packed into this episode. The biggest thing being that Wally West is back, and he is here to try and figure out what is wrong with the Speedforce. Because as we've noticed with Barry, that something's been kind of off. His powers have not been working as well as they have, or they should have been, after Crisis. So he's back, first to say hi to everybody, but then to also get down to what happened with the Speedforce and what Barry did. He makes a really great entrance in the beginning of this episode where there are a bunch of people in this helicopter and it's coming down. Someone disabled it somehow, like it's kind of falling apart, and he speeds in, takes the people out of the helicopter, and then disassembles it in midair. Like, that was awesome. Now, one thing I've noticed about this episode is that Wally is just really overpowered now. He's been gone doing like Zen stuff, and somehow that's given him better control over the Speedforce. Like, I think he's actually better than Barry now. And so you see a lot of these cool tricks that he does as the episode goes on. During his welcome back party, you see he can use electricity to create shapes in midair. Like, he's doing some crazy stuff, and it makes me think, wow, they really could have done so much with this character if they hadn't done him dirty all the way back in Season 4 and into Season 5. Like, he was one of my favorite parts of The Flash so far, and then when he left, it hurt, of course. But then he was on Legends, which was great, but then he left Legends too and left Flash, so then he's gone, and now he's back, and they show us all this cool stuff that he can do, and it makes me wish that he was still a part of the show, that he was still a regular, but it is what it is. So, they're having this welcome back party, and then Cisco comes back, sees the welcome home sign, like, oh guys, you did this, you shouldn't have, and then realizes it's for Wally when he sees Wally there. And that part was really funny. I love that moment with Cisco and Wally reuniting, but then that kind of humor that we're used to between the two of them. Now, one thing that was kind of bittersweet about this whole welcome party thing that I'll get into later when we talk more about Iris is that this is not the real Iris here. This is still Mirror Iris. So all of that stuff, all of the emotional things there, all of the reuniting with Wally and stuff is not real because it's not actually her. And again, we'll get to that later, but I was really happy seeing everybody together again with Wally, and then I realized, wait a minute, it's not true because it's not the real Iris there. Barry and Wally are trying to speed around to clean up the party, and then Barry slips up and causes a mess. And that's when Wally starts to ask him, okay, what are you doing? What's happening? What's wrong with the Speedforce? And they keep going back and forth about this throughout the episode, and then finally Wally just confronts Barry, like, what did you do? There's this really cool sequence where Barry and Wally are in the CCPD, and while they're kind of yelling at each other, arguing, and Barry's trying to tell him, I didn't do anything, I don't know what's going on, then bam, Wally pulls Barry into the Speedforce, like, without him even noticing. And I love the way they filmed that too. You could see that the background was getting blurred, and the cinematography was just changing as they're yelling at each other, so you could tell something was happening, but you didn't really know what. So they enter the Speedforce, and it turns out that it's completely a mess. There's like this weird lightning showing up. It's really dark and gloomy. They find the Speedforce version of Barry's mom sick in bed, and it turns out that Barry did something, and he thinks actually that it's a result of what he did with Bloodwork when Bloodwork got into his head and made him attack the Speedforce. He thinks that's the reason that this is happening. Wally sees this and blames Barry and yells at him like, I can't believe you did this. You don't think about other people. There's other people that use the Speedforce, and now it's going to be gone for everybody. It's dying. Like, the Speedforce is going to be gone by the end of this episode, and at this point, it didn't seem like there's anything they can do to fix it. Barry, because of who he is, now wants to try and find a solution to try and get back in the Speedforce, figure out what he needs to do, and fix it to make up for his mistakes. Because, you know, he's somebody that, like a lot of the heroes in these shows, he, like, takes things really hard, especially when it's his fault. So Barry uses the tachyon device that the Reverse Flash was using to boost his speed to get back into the Speedforce and talk to it and figure out what he needs to do to fix it. It turns out that it's not the Bloodwork stuff that's causing this, it's actually what happened in Crisis, when Oliver just tapped his forehead and like gave him all this energy, the boost he needed to get back to the Speedforce. That introduced something like almost like a parasite into the Speedforce that it wasn't familiar with. It was a power that it didn't know, so it just completely wrecked everything, and it's falling apart. So Barry, again, takes it very hard that he messed it up, and it seems like there's nothing really they can do, but he and Wally kind of come to terms with it, that they have a limited amount of speed, and that they have to use it now to fight this new villain, Turtle 2, which brings us into the next story of this episode, which is now there's a new version of Turtle. Again, like we've seen in the last couple episodes, there are now new versions of old villains from previous seasons that have changed as a result of Crisis. So now we have Turtle 2, who is a different person. She's now a Russian woman, I believe, and she's going after these people that did her dirty for some reason. I forgot the actual specifics. But she's going after these people one by one, and her power now is not just the slow down ability of Turtle, but she can also speed up time or make people decay at a faster rate, make them age faster, and make them basically turn into like mummies. And that's what she does to these people that were on this helicopter. She's going after them one by one. And so the team has to work together to figure it out. Cisco's back, and he immediately jumps into his work trying to find a solution to beat Turtle 2. But you see that he's just trying to preoccupy himself because he's feeling really empty about his journey. He feels like he didn't really get anything out of it like he expected. He was hoping to be like Wally and come back a new person with a new outlook, new ability, something. But then nothing happened, so now he feels kind of incomplete, and that's why he's forcing himself in his work, and he talks to Caitlin about this, and he also talks to Nashville, kind of, but they have a kind of argument because Nashville is trying to get his help on his Wells ghost problem. But seeing Cisco's journey in this episode was also very interesting, happening alongside Wally's, because you see this contrast where Wally went on this journey and came back a completely different person with new powers, new outlook on life, and just stronger, better than ever, while Cisco came back and he just feels like, I'm the same person. So I thought that was interesting. And so they complete this device to stop Turtle 2. Now, while that's happening, Cisco tries to get help from Nash Wells, but then it turns out Nash Wells is now possessed by Eobard Thawne. He was back in his office when he sees the Reverse Flash, and then the Reverse Flash seemingly attacks him. Now, at first we thought these are all just ghosts or illusions of some kind, but it's actually something deeper happening. Like, these are the real Wellses coming back from the dead, basically, it looks like. And somehow Eobard Thawne has now possessed Nash Wells. He attacks Cisco, and Cisco realizes it's not Nash anymore, that it's Thawne. And then Thawne tries to do the speed hand thing, but because he's in Nash Wells' body, or at least not yet, he doesn't have his powers. So he tries to do the hand vibrate thing to kill Cisco, and then Cisco realizes he can't do it because he doesn't have the speed, and they get into a fight, and Cisco almost knocks him out, but then Thawne gets the better of him again, and then somebody else comes in to save them. But I think this is a really interesting twist, but it does raise a lot of questions about the logistics of what this is, how it ties into Crisis. Why is it that these illusions now have the ability to possess Wells? How is it only Eobard was able to do it, but not Sherlock or Harry? Like, why is it just this version of Wells? Looking at it right now, it is kind of weird, but I am looking forward to seeing how they explain all this and how it ties into everything. The next episode is actually called The Exorcism of Nash Wells, which looks really interesting, so we'll see what happens there. Barry and Wally have come to terms with losing their speed, and they decide they're going to use this one last moment to try and fight Turtle 2.0. They phase through the buildings as they're running through to try and cut down on time, which is really smart. And together they defeat Turtle 2.0. There's this really cool sequence where they're both running on the walls and dodging blasts and all kinds of stuff. I really love that scene. And now let's get to Mirror Iris, which is, again, something that I sort of had a problem with in this episode. Now, not that the development was necessarily bad, but I feel like at this point, it's kind of overkill. Like, they've really been doing this Iris thing for a while now. At first, I thought it was only going to be a few episodes, but now it's like been like 4 or 5 episodes now. And it's really frustrating, too, because there's moments like Wally coming back that we can't fully enjoy because Iris is not actually there. She's still trapped in the mirror with Ava McCulloch. But we do have some interesting elements to that story, I'll admit. But at this point, I just want Iris to escape. I want us to get back to the reporter Iris that we had earlier in the second half of season 6. So a few things that happened in this episode concerning Mirror Iris. First, when Barry confronts her about the Speedforce dying and how he's feeling like he messed up and what he's going to do now, she's like, well, maybe it's a good thing that the Speedforce is gone. Maybe you can have a normal life. And he just gives her this look. And I feel like he's starting to catch on again, like something's not right. Because she knows how much this guy loves being the Flash. She knows how much he's a hero. So it wouldn't make sense for her to say, oh, it's fine that you're not going to be a hero anymore. It's fine you won't have your super speed. It's fine, even though that's pretty much a big part of who you are or who you have been for the last 6 years. Like, I really feel like this is going to be the moment where Barry's like, okay, what's going on? There's also a moment where her and Wally are talking about the Speed Force. Then Camilla comes in and takes a picture of them, and she freaks out. Well, not freaks out, but she gives a really stern look. She's like, delete that picture. You can't take pictures of citizen workers, blah, blah, blah. Black hole will find us. And I think in this moment, Camilla was suspicious, but also with Wally. She tells Camilla to delete the picture, and she deletes it, but at first you're like, oh, dang it, that's the only evidence they could have had, because there's definitely going to be something up with that picture, but we'll get to that later. Actually, rewind, one more weird thing that Mirror Iris did was that when Ava McCulloch was kind of like mumbling to herself in the mirror world and kind of frozen, she also had that same reaction while she was pouring a drink at the party, and her drink was overflowing, and everybody's like, wait, what's wrong? And I think it was either Camilla or Cecile, I don't remember, who stopped and like, yo, are you okay? And she's like, yeah, I'm fine. At this point now, I'm hoping people are picking up on these clues that this is not the real Iris, and some people do towards the end of this episode, but of course, they have to drag it on a little longer. So now as we get towards the end of the episode, we have two people that catch on to Iris not being the real Iris. First, we have Wally talking to Joe, kind of having a father-son moment, and as he's leaving, Wally says, keep an eye on Iris. I don't think something's right with her. And I'm like, finally, someone says something. Now, of course, Barry was suspicious from the beginning, but a combination of Mirror Iris's deception and Joe just being Joe convinced him that nothing was actually wrong. But hopefully, the stuff in this episode makes him think differently. And the second moment, or the second person to catch on, was Camilla. When she was deleting the picture from her camera, it wouldn't delete because of some weird refraction thing, whatever. And so she clicked OK, and then it showed that Mirror Iris was some kind of crystallized mirror thing. And then she turns around and sees Mirror Iris standing there with a mirror gun, and she's like, oh. And then she shoots Camilla with the mirror gun, and I really hope that didn't kill her. I hope that just sent her into the mirror world or something, because I really like Camilla's character. But now Camilla's gone, and the evidence is gone that Mirror Iris is Mirror Iris. And so now it continues. Now I hope that Joe pays more attention to Iris, and then he warns Barry, and then everybody figures it out soon, because this is getting out of hand. Again, there's a lot of great moments happening here, but it's not genuine because it's not the real Iris. So it's not real character development, which is the most annoying thing about it. I know this is something interesting for the story, like they're trying to mix it up, but it's frustrating because earlier in the season, we were getting so many great Iris moments, her being a reporter, her leading the Citizen, all this great stuff, and now it's gone out the window because she's not there anymore. She's trapped in this mirror world with this other lady, and the fake version of her is out here doing all these things. So I really do hope this story ends within the next few episodes because I'm personally getting tired of it. So last big thing is that they capture Nashville / Eobard Wells, capture him in the pipeline, and he says something about how he created his own negative speed force because the original speed force was weak. And that inspires Barry to now create an artificial speed force, one that they create together as a team that the good people can use now that the original speed force is basically dead. I'm also really looking forward to seeing how that plays out and how that affects other speedsters going forward. Maybe it opens the door for Nora to come back, and for other speedsters who we think are gone, but maybe aren't totally gone. So we'll see. This was a great episode. I really enjoyed it. Now, not all the stuff, like the Mirror Iris stuff for me is kind of getting old, but the stuff with Wally was done really well, and it made me miss him a lot more. The stuff with Cisco was done really well. Nash Wells, I'm really excited to see what happens next week. And I really do hope we can get back to the Reporter Iris stuff and Black Hole. So what did you think of this episode of The Flash? Let me know down in the comments. Also, don't forget to like this video, share it, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next one.